Dawgs podcast with your hosts, Blake Reneker, Justin Charles, John Nye, and Josh All.
What's up, Browns fans? Welcome back to another episode of the Dawgs podcast. If you want to get your intros on the show, head to the dawgspodcast.com, tap leave voicemail in the drop-down menu. We love getting your thoughts on the show. We love hearing you guys' voicemails and your intros, so please keep sending them in. I'm using a camera today, so I'm practicing looking at it, and then I keep looking down. So if you don't know what I'm looking at, I'm just trying to practice being on camera, but I'm not good at it yet. I like looking at Josh instead. Today, it's just me and Josh, and we're joined by a very special guest. We're going to have Jake Burns from the Orange and Brown Report. You guys know what he does on Twitter and TikTok, YouTube, with his film breakdowns. He breaks down every game. It's a lot of good stuff. So if you guys are interested in that, stay tuned. We're going to have that right after this open, and it's an awesome discussion. If you're watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe. Make sure you tap the notification bell so you never miss a new episode. You can also find us on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and Facebook. If you prefer to just listen to episodes, you can find us on Apple, Spotify, and Google. Lastly, if you're looking for more Dawgs content, head to jointhedawgs.com, become an official Dog Pack member on our Patreon page, get access to the private Discord, extra episode every week. You get to play fantasy football with us if you stick around till next year, because all the leagues are already full, obviously. We do weekly pick'ems. We give out merch every month. There's a lot of cool stuff in there. A big online Browns community, so it's a super cool place to hang out. You get to hang out with the Dogs more often. So if you want more content, you want to hang out with us pretty much all the time, head to jointhedawgs.com to become an official Dog Pack member. So as I mentioned in the open, we have a special guest with us here today, Jacob Burns from the Orange and Brown Report. You guys watch all of his stuff on YouTube, breaking down the Browns games. You guys see his stuff on Twitter. We're super pumped to have him here today. We're going to ask him all about the offense. There's so much stuff going on in Browns Twitter right now. Everybody's losing their minds. We were like, we need to get somebody on here who watches the tape, who breaks it down, who can really tell us what's going on with the Browns. It's awesome to have you here, man. We appreciate you taking time to join us here tonight.
Hey, my pleasure. You know, I've seen your guys' work before and like what you do, so anytime we can link up, I always appreciate it.
Awesome, man. Well, we're just going to dive right into this, give the people what they want. If obviously we're all on Twitter, we all see what's going on in Browns universe. I'm not saying Stefanski is the perfect coach or the best coach, but I've always defended him in terms of what I would consider unfair criticism. I think he's kind of had the deck stacked against him at times in terms of who he has playing quarterback for him, injuries he's dealt with, kind of chaos he's had to deal with, and stuff like that. So I just want to talk a little bit about the criticism of him and his offense. One of the biggest things I see on Twitter is he runs a high school offense. It's boring. It's vanilla. Everybody looks the same in it. What does the film say? Is it a high school offense or is it execution? What's the problems?
I'd say any team in high school running that type of offense would be quite advanced. Maybe Medina with Drew Aller there a little bit ago. But no, I mean, I think that the way I would label it right now, I've kind of tried to put this as a real angle for where I'm at on Kevin, because I've been an ardent Kevin defender for a long time. Like, I have believed in him as as a leader and a guy who could produce results, give his guys a chance. But we're reaching a sort of boiling point where I think the structure of what he's doing is lagging behind, which sounds pretty simplistic to say, but the NFL shifted in about 2012, shifted as Kyle and Shanahan and McVay and all those guys, LaFleur and Mike McDaniel were coaching underneath, the Shanahan's father. This stuff started to become really popular, wide zone, and all of the stuff off of wide zone became a popular staple of NFL concepts, right? So this spread through the league. It's been a decade. It's run its course. It got really popular in the 16, 17, 18. You saw Matt Ryan win an MVP with this structure. Like, it can benefit players. It can benefit a quarterback. It can make things simple, defined, and easy to produce results. Not easy, but just it's like training wheels is the thing I've always heard, and I think that's pretty fair. So I think what's happened here is that as Stefanski learned the one offensive system that he was really exposed to during his time with Gary Kubiak in Minnesota, it's started to become like, what else does Kevin know? And the NFL has seen this stuff for a decade and a half, longer, right? Where you're talking like half the league guys are running this. You're seeing this almost everywhere over the course of a decade for, teams in some form or fashion. And the defenses are just better at defending it. The defenses are taking away what used to be a gigantic luxury of this offense, which was a chance to pursue explosive plays. If you look across the league, explosive play rate is down. The Browns are chasing explosive plays that they can't find. They're top 10 in 20-yard air throw attempts, yet second worst in the NFL in terms of completion, number of those that have actually hit. So I think what's going on here is the NFL has caught up to the structure of offense that Kevin Stefanski's comfortable using. They've seen it. They've gotten used to it. It's just a part of the way the fiber of the NFL at this point. And a lot of the smarter minds are adapting away from it. And, if you look at the teams like, again, those names I've already said, McVay, Shanahan, they're going away from heavy dosages of under center play action, doing different things. The last I checked, San Francisco is bottom 5 in the league in under center play action. I think the Rams were near the 20th number there. So, it's pretty obvious to me the NFL is working away from it because defenses are really good at defending it. And I don't think I've seen any ability from Kevin to adapt and evolve the principal core philosophy of what that offense is, which is based in wide zone structure, what comes from that in the run game. And again, you can get away with this with Nick Chubb because Nick is one of one. He's extremely special. And even if teams play it right, there's a chance Nick has a cut that nobody sees or bounces off a tackle. You've witnessed it, right? So, there's this way of, we can continue to get away with this because we have this generation's best running back, but eventually that comes to a halt, and we've seen it come to a halt this year. And, I've got some things I'm putting together in terms of writing things up, but the Browns are among the bottom 10 teams in the NFL this year in run plays that are having a 0 or negative yard rush attached to them. So they're very boom or bust in their run game, and that's creating too many third and longs. And as we know, they don't have an answer for third and long right now. So, long story short, because I could talk on this forever, they're just stuck in an offensive structure that I think the NFL has moved past in terms of a way to consistently find success. And I think the adaptation to the next layer of that, evolving, changing, is something Kevin is struggling with. And I think that's why when you watch, you feel like everything is so disjointed, if that makes sense.
If you're in Ohio, Browns fans, DraftKings has upped their sign-up offer to kick off this football season. New users can place a $5 first bet to instantly claim $200 in bonus bets, plus get up to $150 back in bonus bets if your team loses. All you have to do is sign up with our code THEDAWGS, all one word. Using our code, THEDAWGS, not only gets you these great bonuses, it also supports this podcast. So if you have been considering signing up for DraftKings, make sure you use the code THEDAWGS to maximize your first bets. This offer is only available for new customers who are 21 and older and physically present in Ohio. Please gamble responsibly. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Check the episode description for the full terms of the offer to see if you qualify.
Yeah, do you think it's an unwillingness to adapt, or do you think it's a skill gap or knowledge gap? Do you think he was leaning, you had the pressure of having Nick Chubb, in the fan base, what we heard all year last year was give Nick Chubb the ball 20 times and it's a guaranteed win, so was there pressure to stay with that with Nick Chubb? And then as soon as Nick Chubb goes down, which obviously we didn't like to see, and it seemed like we were more open in that Titans game. I don't know. And then we had one great offensive game, and then Deshaun goes down. So do you think he can adapt? Do you think he's going to be unwilling to once he gets a healthy Deshaun back and he doesn't have Nick Chubb to lean on?
Good question. I think I've grown to believe that it's less an unwillingness because it's so obvious, guys, that I have to think there's just an inability here to do it. And that sounds pretty callous, but I don't know how you could look at what they're doing from a coach's perspective and feel comfortable with what they're doing. So I have to think that there's just an uncomfortable vibe for Kevin here that he doesn't exactly know how to apply. He tried to hire Bill Musgrave. He's tried to do some things, but I just, what evidence do we have, fellas? I have the vibe of what the old offense was, which I thought it was going to evolve to more inside zone RPO-based stuff, branching off of that to what I thought were endless possibilities with a quarterback who can move. And what we've found is a very similar structure, one that is tied into what Kevin knows best. And like I've also mentioned this too, when Deshaun debuted back with the Browns in week 12 of last year, I was so encouraged because he put together a game plan that was really similarly done to what Deshaun was doing in his Texans days, which was this RPO. It's a concept called read flat wheel, which is really it kind of swept the league, I would say, a little while back, 2 years ago. But from that read flat wheel, there was a bunch of options for a mobile quarterback to create downfield for his guys if he was able to pull up. But you could also hand it off and run inside zone with Nick, which I'm like, all right, that should be pretty simplistic, right? Bread and butter. You can actually give that football off to Nick, and you got a lot of good options. And they did it a lot. They did it like 7 times in that game. And I was like, all right, this is the future of what they're going to be, the whole iPad and, being excited to get together. They're going to evolve this thing. Kevin's going to get away from a lot of what he's been, his coaching tree. He's going to branch out. Maybe they go hire somebody this offseason. Maybe they go after somebody from the Philly tree with Steichen and Gannon. Sorry, not Gannon. He's the DC, but head coach whose name is escaping my mind right now. Those two kind of Sirianni, right? They run together. They've done a great job. I mean, look at what the Colts have been able to do with Gardner Minshew for large chunks of the year. But they have not gone down that path. Like I watched the preseason opener, saw a lot of inside zone, and they were running it effectively. And when they've run it this season from the gun, they're one of the better gun run teams in yards per carry, but they have just failed to evolve in a way, in my opinion, that they should have. Now Nick is down. They haven't evolved. Maybe they come out of the bye, guys. Maybe they have done some of these things and they're going to start applying them. But to the root of your question, at this point, I don't think you can I don't know how the Browns would look at it and feel like we don't know the answer. I mean, I'm an idiot. I'm a genuine idiot, and I'm sitting behind a computer screen most of the time, and I can see the issue. I can see what needs to be fixed, right? I mean, again, you have guys in your guard center, guard structure who can handle this stuff in terms of inside zone, working double teams, climbing to the second level. Your tackles can handle that. Your running backs need less lateral movement. They need more north-south movement in their structure. And again, to me, it's a little bit crazy that they haven't applied this in a way that I think is meaningful for them. And especially because it was such a huge part of what Deshaun was good at in his Houston days, was applying that inside zone and the answers off of that I think are unique, right? So I'm not overly optimistic they're going to fix it. If they don't, then I start to have questions about whether this is the long-term answer, because we're talking a full off season with Watson and the ability here to adapt and apply these things. So I'm less certain than I've ever been, guys, not to be too negative on your show, but there's not a doubt in my mind here that they can do it. It's just a matter of, do they want to? Do they believe in it? Or is it the regimented style that he wants to play, and he's going to try to play that way no matter what?
Well, and that's kind of where I've been at this whole season with the offense. And, I don't do the film breakdown or understand the schemes and all that kind of thing like you do. But just from a Browns fan perspective, watching the games, I keep saying on the shows that the offense to me just kind of feels weird. I don't know how else to explain it. Just almost feels a little forced. Sometimes they run plays and I'm just like, what are they actually trying to accomplish here? And me and Blake go back and forth on, is it execution? Is it play calling? It almost feels sometimes like they're trying to use Deshaun Watson in ways that he's not comfortable, in ways that maybe Jacoby Brissett last year was more comfortable. I don't know. I mean, can you kind of elaborate on a little bit of that as far as the personnel and the way they're being used in the offense?
I think that there are times, guys, when I'm not a body language doctor here, but I think there are times where I don't feel like there's conviction from those running the plays that these are going to work. And when that attitude trickles into their play, I think you start to see the ramifications of that, which is a lack of effort at times, right? A lack of belief leads to a lack of focus again at times. So I just I'm trying to be delicate with it because it is a very tricky thing, and you don't know, right? I'm not in the coach's office and not in the locker room, and so I really don't know. But what I can tell you is, I think what you have to do, guys, is keep defenses on their heels. If you let NFL defenses play over their toes, because they know when you're in a specific look, you're going to probably run this 80% of the time. When you're in this look, you're probably going to run this a high percentage of the time. And I'm telling you, defenses are keying on what they think the Browns are going to do, and they're right more often than not. And when the Browns do try to play some elaborate game with a play action of some variety, they're covering it. Put it that way. There's nothing that teams are not prepared for. Now, the bust against the Titans was just a weird cover 4 miscommunication that I don't know what the corner. It was just a vertical route from Amari, so it's not like it was anything fancy, right? So I mean, they're not finding a ton of schemed open players. So I think, again, if defenses are able to play very much over their toes, which I think, again, we can all agree that is the case right now, and from that, there's not a really great process of sequencing. What I mean by that is running plays that set up other plays. If you don't have that element to it either, guys, then it starts to get even tougher. So, we talk about why do they feel so disjointed? They feel disjointed because I, again, don't feel like they have a real identity. And if you don't have an identity, I think it's pretty easy to see why, you're struggling to pick up simple yards, right? I don't think it goes much beyond that, where they're not like, okay, if the Browns' identity is to be under center and that's the root of their play action, when you get a specific look from the gun, you're not going to pay much attention to that gun and run, right? Like, they don't run inside zone from the gun, so why do I care if they flash fake to the running back? It's not a serious threat, right? So I'm just saying, like, if you don't have an identity that ties into where the modern game is pushing play action to shoot big plays, like if you go watch, I wrote it up because I kind of get a kick out of watching the rest of the league. I put up some schemes that are pretty popular, that were popular in the bye week, that I would just picked a couple that I'd love to see the Browns implement. Like the Bengals, I'm sure everybody's seen Jamar Chase hit that long touchdown ball. Like, that's just a gun lateral, outside zone look. And the Cardinals are in cover 2. And when you run cover 2, you have a middle runner. The Mike backer usually chases deep middle, and he can't get there because he's sniffing out the run, because the Bengals do run wide zone from the gun. He takes one brief step the wrong direction, and Jamar Chase is running down the middle of the field. So, like, I think that the thing that they have to do is get their run game again to the point that it mirrors the passing game, which is what Kevin wanted to do. It's what he's tried to do, and he's had success at times. But I feel like they're lost in trying to do it right now, and thus, again, creates all of these opportunities for defenses to play a really aggressive fashion and be able to take things away from them.
So, well, that is discouraging. But I guess when I've defended him after the Ravens game, I guess my whole point was the guys were 2-2. There's no reason to punt on the season. And the dude, I always say it's almost a miracle that he has an above 500 win percentage, considering he coached 11 games with Jacoby Brissett last year, and he coached a season with Baker Mayfield, who couldn't throw a football because of, for whatever reason, his shoulder. And so the fact that we even stayed afloat is what I guess has encouraged me at times.
Yeah.
But I will say, I watched the film breakdowns, and it seems like we do have guys open, or things are there if we block right. So is there also, like, the execution, which you just touched on a little bit? I feel like that's also lacking. Like, guys that we used to count on, they're not playing at the level that they have in the past.
Yeah, it's never one thing. When your offense is the bottom of the NFL, it's never one thing. And listen, the offensive line hasn't been anywhere near good enough. Like I mean, we all like to kind of pride ourselves on what we think the Browns' offensive line is, but they're among the bottom third of the NFL right now. They're not run blocking well enough. They're too many times that they have two guys on one, missing a single important block, which leads to a leak out, right? A guy can get through and blow up a run scheme. I think that they're not protecting well enough in one-on-one isolation situations for me. So that hasn't been good, because they have missed some plays where I feel like they could, make something happen, but they're a guy who gets the pressure into the quarterback's face Take an example again, if you want to harken back to, the most recent one with Baltimore, they ran that little Harrison Bryant flip back to the quarterback throw, but there's Ethan Postage gives up a late pressure and Dorian Thompson-Robinson can't step into it. And thus, they got a flag out of it, but it could have been a huge play if the quarterback could drive and step into it. Like, it's just happening too often, right? And again, I feel like there are stretches of good quarterback play in this offense, but too often it has been inconsistent quarterback play. And you can say, and I've said this a lot, guys, I've said, hey, man, there's people open. There are people open everywhere at times. Times there are. If you can't get your quarterback to consistently find those answers, then, fair or unfair, it does arrive in your lap. Like, it's a make or miss league, for lack of a better term. And if you can't hit it, then eventually, you're not going to make it. So, yeah, there's layers to all of this. They're not getting good enough play from their offensive line. Like I said, the running backs, that whole thing throws a huge wrinkle into this, guys, where, Nick can take a play that's going to go, and maybe it's the perfect setup. You can get 8 yards out of it. He makes it 48, right? Like, Nick will make things that, this drive had no business continuing, but he makes a specific play and creates something that's not there. And when you lose that, it starts to tighten up the margin for error. And what it does is put you in all of these situations that are very condensed. And now all of a sudden, instead of popping that one run for an explosive, we have nothing, right? We haven't been able to create anything. And from that inability to create anything, you start to run into these 3rd and 8s and you can't find answers. So like, it's a layered thing. I don't think obviously they went into the season thinking they wouldn't have Nick Chubb, right? Like,
right.
They planned accordingly for that, but like they're sitting in a situation now where the lack of planning has now put them in a position to be exposed, right? And this exposure that they've left themselves vulnerable to here, it requires fixing the scheme to create more confusion in the defense. And again, it comes down to like, do you want to do that? And if you don't want to do that or are not willing to bite the grenade on that and maybe have a couple rough games as you build toward a more cohesive product, then it's never going to work. That's the thing I've been bummed about. They came out in that Texans game and they were very different, very adaptive, very forward thinking in what I thought they would be with Deshaun Watson. And ever since then, guys, they've gone in reverse. And then we've seen it this year. If you lose the ability that Nick Chubb brings to the table, which is, I can take something chaotic and I can make something out of it to continue drives. Drives go from 6 plays to 12 plays because he makes one person miss in space, or 2 people, sometimes even 3. When that happens, you start to say, okay, where's our answer? And if our answer isn't in one of our Jimmys or Joes making a play like that, the scheme has to be able to help with it. And I just, again, don't think they have adapted themselves to a place that is confusing modern NFL defenses, right? If this was 2017, they'd be fine. They would be fine. I really think that. But this is not. This is 2023, where defenses have been exposed to this across the NFL. And if you're not doing different, unique things that make defenses think, it's adapt or die. It really is. And I had tweeted that just the other night. Like, if you're not willing to adapt, change, and become varied in your approach, that's what makes teams like Philly so hard to cover, man, is they're so varied in their approach. And it's like, there's just a lack of willingness to do that. And I kind of am, that's the thing I'm most disappointed. It doesn't mean that Kevin's losing his job, and it doesn't mean I'm going on shows or talking to you guys about him losing his job, but this is the biggest reason I'm concerned that he's not the long-term answer, because when you spend this much time with Deshaun, I had thought that they would take their growing pains at the end of last season, but there was an unwillingness to do that. So now you're coming into this season, and again, they're unwilling to do that. And it's like, well, when are you guys ever going to adapt here? Because what you're running is, again, not to beat a dead horse here, but it is something from a time gone by. And it's like, other than throwing a couple trick plays out there to see what sticks, like, they're not doing enough things here to make life difficult on these defenses. So that's why you're talking about, why does everything feel so hard? Well, I'm telling you, because the defense is making it hard, because the defense knows exactly what is coming. They have a great feel for what is coming. So, they have enough talent, guys, to solve this, to fix it, to do some things that make them still plenty good enough to win 8, 9. I mean, can they get to 10 wins? Yeah, but it's going to take some adaptation. And obviously the big thing that looms over all of this is whether the quarterback is ever going to be right to do it again. Yeah. So there's that element.
This episode is brought to you by Omaha Steaks. Browns fans, fall is in the air, and that means we're looking forward to crisp mornings, falling leaves, and more sweater weather. More importantly, you gotta get the best meats for your tailgates, for your outdoor cookouts this fall. Just to kind of put the bad taste of the Browns game out of your mouth, get the great taste of Omaha Steaks coming in. Omaha Steaks has all your fall cravings covered with 50% off site-wide during the semi-annual sale. That's 50% off all your favorite tender, juicy, extra-aged steaks like their butcher's cut filet mignons. Go to omahasteaks.com right now. Use code DAWGS, D-A-W-G-S, when you check out, and you get an additional $30 off your order. With Omaha Steaks, the possibilities are endless. You get endless flavor, endless value, incredible entrees, scrumptious size, decadent desserts, and just so much more. All of it 50% off right now during the semi-annual sale. Every bite is backed by their 100% unconditional guarantee. And like I said, you get $30 off your order when you use promo code DAWGS, D-A-W-G-S, at checkout. My freezer constantly stocked with Omaha Steaks food. It is the best. I promise you, you will not be disappointed. Go to omahasteaks.com right now. Shop all of these delicious favorites for half the price. Get 50% off plus $30 extra off your order when you use promo code DAWGS at checkout. Get to omahasteaks.com right now because this sale is only for a limited time. Minimum purchase may apply.
So a big thing I hear about in Stefanski detractors is that they want AVP to call the plays. Do you think?
What's the evidence, man? Like, what's the evidence?
That's what
you guys tell me. What tangible thing has Alex Van Pelt done since he's been around? I would love to know.
The playoff game, and I have to remind you that after the Steelers gave us 4 turnovers, we didn't score many points, and we just hung on for dear life.
Well, also think that guess who was heavily involved in the game plan, making up things that they were going to use in that game.
Yep.
Right? Like, you think Kevin was just like not involved in any of the game planning for that game? Like, that's just laughable. It's just, again, that's people that don't understand how the game works trying to apply, what they want to use as justification for certain things. So, I mean, again, it is, I don't know how you can watch what's gone on here and feel like you have this feel for Alex Van Pelt as a coach, as a play caller. The thing that amazes me is all of their important offensive minds are on the sideline. Callahan's on the sideline, AVP's on the sideline. I'm pretty sure O'Shea's on the sideline. We know Kevin is. Like, who's up top transferring information? And that's always been something that's sort of mystified me a little bit about their process of figuring out solutions in game. And I'm an idiot here. I'm not trying to like scrutinize everything, but there are questions that I would ask about how are you guys? I mean, are you relying on getting your game adjustments from somebody, like a staffer? Like who's giving you, hey, we see this, we see that. I mean, maybe they have a guru up there. Maybe Musgrave's sitting up there right now and giving. I just like to watch a lot of competent play callers getting their sourcing on adjustments and different things from up top, and that's another element too. I feel like at times the process is broken. And there's a little bit of like cross your fingers going on here instead of taking the punch to the defense. It too often to me feels like we'll just call this play and hope for the best outcome instead of, hey, we ran this to get to this, right? Or this first quarter play is going to dictate the look that we get in this third quarter play that is a huge moment for us. So there's been a couple moments. I thought the Jerome Ford touchdown was a really nice design and play call based on scouting of what Tennessee does to motion empty. So I really gave them a lot of credit for that. And Stefanski talked about that, being his assistant coaches that sort of drove that play design and play call. And again, credit to them for that. But there have not been very many guys where I'm sitting there like, this is just like if you go watch, for example, the Lions, what Ben Johnson's doing almost every play, you're like, my goodness, it's actually kind of amazing that this is the look that they're getting so consistently. So, we'll leave it at that. Again, I'm not trying to ask for people's jobs. I've just been using my voice, my podcast, my whatever football knowledge I have, to just say I have concerns about the longevity of the operation here making sense for everybody involved, right? I think Kevin is he's the right temperament of a head coach that I like. I think he's very even-keeled. He's not a screamer. I like a lot of things Kevin does. I just worry about the prospect of him being the long-term play caller that we thought he could be, and at times I thought he could be, which is a bummer because we thought there was a solution here for a long time. So it's not to say he can't accept the challenge and go hire some smart people. We obviously know that they had a pretty smart person in the building in Petzing, right, who's clearly doing some nice things for Arizona, creating run lanes for that group that are unique, right, among the best in the NFL at yards before contact, stuff like that. And that's like a bummer that you've seen Petzing now leave. Can he create people around him, guys, who will challenge the status quo and say, hey, we need to be doing this differently, thinking about this differently in a way that brings out the best in the personnel and the play caller, right? I think that there's you never want to do that, right? You never want to force. We've seen that happen too many times in the NFL where you force a marriage, you force somebody to hire, force somebody to hire a coordinator. You never like that arranged marriage stuff. We watched it with Hugh and Todd Haley up close, and we've seen it. It's been across the NFL. It's not like it's isolated here to the Browns, but I do think there's a world where that he could have an offensive coordinator make it work. But again, how stuck to him are they? Do they like him like that? Right? I think that's an important thing to ask if they think he's worth that continued investment. Right? So a lot of layers to it, guys. But I think Kevin's the right guy. Just don't know if there's going to be patience to allow him to fix what's going on offensively. If he's not the guy, can he go to Jimmy Haslam and say, I'm not getting it done. You let me hire a DC last year. Let me hire an OC this year and we'll get it right. I don't know if that patience is there after 4 years, if they say go 9-8 and miss the playoffs. So there's just so much pressure in the second half of this season. That's the understatement of the year, right?
Yeah, that's been my biggest thing with Kevin is I'm like you. I like him as a head coach. I think he's a good head coach. Now, in terms of like taking on all the play calling and the offensive coordinating responsibilities, I don't know how that's going to play out for him. But if it doesn't work, it's going to fall back on him, and he could risk losing his head coaching job over that. So I like your suggestion there. I like your point about maybe trying to find an offensive mind to come in and take that part over so he can just focus on what he's doing. Because you saw it with Joe Woods last year on the defense. A lot of the guys looking around confused. You saw the miscommunication, and they just didn't believe in what was going on. And now, unfortunately, like you referenced earlier, we are seeing some of that sign or body language from the offensive guys now.
It is, man. And look, they can fix this. It can be done. This is not a half-hour negativity hour here, but it is going to take, it's going to take a lot of outside the box and uncomfortable thinking from the head coach. It's going to take a similar amount of player commitment to changing it. And I don't know if they have that. We'll see. That's going to be the challenge, because if they go into the second half of this season or third, because it's so early on a bye week, if they don't and they continue to try to perform the definition of insanity here, then we're going to have a lot of tough conversations, because they're just not going to score, guys. They're really not going to score unless they start to change their identity, which is not easy. It's not easy to do in season, but I have to think that the pieces of that sort of decision were at least considered, discussed, and can be adapted on the fly a little bit. At least I hope. I hope, for the sake of Browns fans who want to watch a winner, that sort of stuff can happen. It really can. It's not like guys haven't played inside zone before. It's not like guys haven't done, a lot of these things. It's just a matter of making it who you're about on that side of the ball again, and seeing if you can apply it to game situations and create opportunities off of it. So that's the way I would put it.
Well, I really hope Stefanski figures it out. I hope because that means the Browns had a good season. So if he's here next year, I would assume that means that he figured things out. He did things, he adapted, started doing some of these things we want to see. If he doesn't, the guy Ben Johnson from Detroit is definitely a guy I have he's doing some good things up there. So that's a name to keep an eye on. Hopefully we don't need to, but I was happy you mentioned his name because that's somebody who I'm a big fan of. Well, we told you we'd get you out of here by 7:10. We're 4 minutes late. I don't want you to get in trouble with the wife, so we'll go ahead and wrap this thing up. I know what trouble with the wife is like, and I don't want to put that on anybody. We appreciate you taking time to do this with us tonight. I think it was really good to kind of get an in-depth look at the offense a little bit during the bye week. But again, we appreciate you doing this. We can't wait to have you back on sometime, and thanks, man.
Yeah, my pleasure, guys. Thanks for having me.
Well, that was a really good breakdown of what the Browns got going on offense this year. Kind of discouraging. He sounds mildly optimistic that we can fix it. Hopefully we can. Hopefully we get this thing turned around after the bye week once Deshaun gets healthy. Once again, we want to thank Jake for being here with us, breaking down everything going on with the Browns offense. It was super awesome. He can take time out of his day and join us. Super nice guy. Make sure you guys go check him out on Twitter and YouTube. He does a lot of great stuff. So go check him out, say hello. And once again, thank you guys for being here with us. And we will see you guys when we preview the Niners later this week.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Dawgs Podcast. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube and follow us on Twitter at the Dawgs Podcast. Get your thoughts on the show at thedawgspodcast.com.